And good evening and welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Livermore City Council. Now call the meeting to order. Moving on to the 2023 Climate Action Plan Progress Report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. This is the 2023 Climate Action Plan Progress Report. This is the first year of implementing our 2022 Climate Action Plan. So this was an update to our original Climate Action Plan, which was first completed in 2012. So this was an update that set new greenhouse gas emissions targets, so carbon neutrality by 2045, and it also added in climate resilience and preparing the community for climate impacts. And we also established a third goal to be a leader in local climate action. And this plan called for annual reports to City Council to check in on progress, implementing the actions in the plan, kind of hold ourselves accountable and stay on track to meet our goals. Something we really focused on in this first year was dedicating resources and building our connections and our workshopping with our community stakeholders. So the city created a brand new full-time staff position to manage CAP implementation. So that's my position. Sustainability program manager to really drive these efforts. And we also established a community working group. So Livermore Climate Action Team meets monthly. It includes members of city staff. Vice Mayor Carling represents council on that working group. We also have members from Quest Science and the Tri-Valley Air Quality Climate Alliance, a member of the school board, researchers from the lab. So a big group of community stakeholders who are all interested in working on local climate action. We also launched the Livermore Resilient Hub, which is an online resource hub for residents to find really customized actions, things they can do to reduce their impact and build resilience in their home, in their property, in their apartment. And it'll have really customized resources, rebates, incentives, programs that people can take advantage of. You can also have competitions. Neighbors can get together, compete against each other, or work towards a shared goal. So it's really a great tool for engaging with the community. Downtown will be part of the L Street Garage and the adjacent surface parking. So we'll have a total of 50 chargers in that project, 32 fast chargers and 18 level 2 chargers. I think that project will be completed hopefully later this year. And we've also been working to convert turf to drought tolerant and native landscaping on city property. So all of that and more is included in the progress report, and we'll have that report available on the city's website along with the original climate action plan at livermoreca.gov/cap.
We're here to present the 2024 Eastern Alameda County Human Services Needs Assessment.
There is a pressing need for quality, affordable housing, along with a pressing need for high quality, affordable, culturally competent healthcare and mental health care. There is a need to hire folks to help community members navigate services. There are several organizations doing very important work in the area. Not many community members know where to go or whom to approach to access the services that they need. Safety in general has been an issue for folks, a sense that things aren't as safe, that the cities aren't as safe as they could be, along with mentions of a substance use issue in some areas and lack of transportation, particularly to access healthcare. For challenges facing youth in particular is, of course, affordable childcare, the availability of accessible, affordable extracurricular activities. We heard very strongly that there is a passion for sports in the Tri-Valley, but it is oftentimes not affordable or not feasible for parents who work full-time jobs to get their kids to practices, to get the gear, or make weekend trips to Vegas to attend tournaments.
We have two separate sets of recommendations, one being what we titled approach recommendations. And these are really meant to be the how. How do we do this work differently to ensure long-term sustainable change? And then the next set of recommendations are really around what? What do we recommend doing to address some of these needs? For the approach recommendations, the first is to implement a series of North Star questions. We have these proposed in the final document. And these are really just to orient everyone towards the same end goal and to make sure that through all processes and procedures, we are collaboratively working towards enacting the kind of change that we want to see. We also recommend continued community engagement. I think if there was any takeaway that my team had from this, it was really around how invaluable this work was to engage community members and to ensure that there was bi-directional communication between nonprofits, between elected officials, between city staff, and the community members themselves, to ensure that this isn't just a report that gets done every 10 years, but that we have the sort of communication network so that everyone is keenly aware of what the needs are and what services are needed. For the actionable recommendations, first we have the recommendation to create a regional service network. We know there are a number of different initiatives and efforts in place already to link the nonprofits. And this recommendation is really to buttress and support those existing efforts and to think strategically about how those networks can be grown and what different forms that might take. Either from having a place and space to convene nonprofits with a dedicated staff person who that's their full-time role to ensure that they have the time and capacity to do so, on up through an option to co-locate, for example, an additional place where services are co-located. There's a recommendation around Tri-Valley nonprofit funding, which alongside other recommendations will require a little bit more work to figure out what does this look like. But we heard consistently from nonprofit organizations just how cumbersome the grant process can sometimes be, as well as reporting requirements. And for smaller nonprofits, this represents a significant burden who might not have a grant writer on staff, might not have an evaluation team to be able to write up their results. So there is a call both for more funding and sustained funding, as well as options such as raising sort of the ceiling or raising the floor on what grant amounts are to make sure that it represents a multi-year investment. And there are several recommendations in the report as to how to build on the existing infrastructure that you all have, as well as how to leverage the rich diversity that you have in Livermore and the rest of the Tri-Valley with the increasing diversity that we're seeing. And then finally, infrastructure solutions, just making sure that we're looking at, what do we need on an infrastructure level? And that's what we heard from a lot of nonprofits is just not having the resources to focus on infrastructure.
One of the things that really stood out in this document, to me at least, and that's the strengths and weaknesses, or strengths and challenges, I should say, that we face in the Tri-Valley. And I think this really did summarize well for specifically Livermore. I think it's very applicable. The strengths that we have were really about our community. It was that we have a diverse community that supports each other, that helps each other. We have a strong nonprofit sector supported by our religious community, supported by our secular community. We really have residents who are giving, donating, volunteering, and helping. We have schools and education that is stepping up to fill gaps where the cities and the county cannot. This community-oriented approach is something we don't see everywhere else, and it is absolutely the backbone of everything we do in Livermore. It leaves us still with challenges that are big. We have the challenge of housing, healthcare, mental health. These are not things that Livermore is going to solve on our own, but they're things that we are working on.
Moving on to 6.1, public hearing. This is the hearing to introduce an ordinance and waive the first reading of amending the municipal code on tobacco retailer licensing.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'm Captain Reynolds from the Police Department, and as the City Manager stated, Chief Young is seated beside me. We are here tonight to recommend amendments to the Tobacco Retailer Licensing Ordinance. Staff recommends the existing ordinance be amended to include the following. Number one, authority for police officers and neighborhood preservation from the City of Livermore to enter a licensed tobacco retailer establishment during business hours and make reasonable inspections to verify compliance with the ordinance. Number two, the scope of the inspections includes all areas of the business establishment, not just the areas open to public view. Officers in neighborhood preservation shall conduct inspections at a time and in a manner that will minimize business interruption. Number three, any person who refuses an inspection of the business establishment will be in violation of this ordinance and may face a civil fine of not less than $250 and not exceeding $1,000 per violation, or revocation of their tobacco retail license. Number 4, lastly, any business operating without a valid tobacco retail license pursuant to this ordinance shall be subjected to criminal prosecution and seizure of tobacco products for evidentiary value. The recommended ordinance amendments are modeled after other municipal tobacco retail ordinances and the California Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, which allows peace officers inspection rights to verify compliance of establishments with ABC licenses. And that concludes the presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Vice Mayor Carling makes the motion, seconded by Councilmember Barrientos. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Moving on to 6.2. So hearing to consider adopting a resolution establishing a fee to cover the costs, reviewing preliminary applications.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand and members of the City Council. The item for your review tonight is to establish a fee for SB 330 preliminary application for eligible housing development projects. The Housing Crisis Act of 2019 created bills that streamline the permitting process for housing developments. This act included SB 330, which was adopted in 2019. SB 330 is not a required pathway, but instead is an incentive for residential developers as it provides certain rights at the time of their SB 330 application submittal and streamlines the application process. Because of these benefits, we do anticipate for more developers to use this process in the future. City staff developed a SB 330 application to satisfy a state law, which allows cities to adopt a fee to account for staff time used to review SB 330 applications. Based on estimated staff time to review SB 330 applications, staff recommends an application fee of $580. Review time is limited to just information on the relatively brief SB 330 application. Staff collects a separate fee to review the standard city land use application, which is required after submittal and review of the SB 330 application. Staff recommends the City Council adopt a resolution establishing a fee for the SB 330 preliminary application for eligible housing development projects in the amount of $580. Staff is available for any questions.
I hear this frequently. People say, well, gee, the city gets $150,000 in fees. This is terrible. This is why the cost of housing is so high. Isn't it true that most of the fees that go into are pass-throughs, that the city collects those for Zone 7, the school district, the park district, all of the other organizations, those are pass-throughs, and it doesn't all go to the city. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
This fee, basically, it covers our costs. So we're not making money on this fee. We're just trying to recoup our costs. So I absolutely support it because it enables the developer to pay those costs, and we don't rely upon the current residents to subsidize it. Moved by Councilmember Branning, seconded by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. So with that, there being no further business coming before the council, I'm going to adjourn the meeting to the next regular meeting on March 11th, 7 o'clock, right here. Meeting adjourned.